And greetings, friends. Today I want to talk to you about Judges, the 11th chapter, verses 30 through 40. Here we see Jephthah. He vows a vow to God, says, if you deliver my enemies into my hands, verse 30, it says in verse 31 that whosoever comes forth of the doors of mine house to meet me when I return in peace from the children of Ammon shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering. Now who met him was his daughter, in verse 34. His daughter came out to meet him with timbrels and with dances. She was his only child. He didn't have a son or a daughter, just her. Son or any other daughter, just her. It says it came to pass when he saw her, he rent his clothes and he lamented. He says, alas, my daughter, thou hast brought me very low. Thou art one of them that trouble me, for I have opened my mouth unto the Lord, and I cannot go back. Now, critics of the Bible claim, how could God allow Jephthah to offer his daughter up for a sacrifice when the Bible plainly says that human sacrifice is an abomination? You can read that in Deuteronomy 12:31 and Deuteronomy 18:10. It's against God's law. Why did God allow it? And then it turns around and calls Jephthah a hero of faith, a champion of faith in Hebrews the 11th chapter, verse 32. Does God contradict himself? Does the Bible contradict? Does God allow human sacrifice, or does he not allow human sacrifice? What do these scriptures mean? Well, let's go through it. I'll put an article in the description below. Does God permit Jephthah to commit human sacrifice? And you can read it in great detail. It's off our website, britishisrael.ca, but again, I'll put the link in the description below and you can read it for yourself in great detail. What does it mean when Jephthah says, it shall surely be the Lord's, and I will offer it up for a burnt offering? Does he mean a human sacrifice? Now, first of all, Jephthah knew God's law. He knew that human sacrifice is an abomination to him. So when he said that whoever meets me, as it says in verse 31, whoever cometh forth of the doors of my house to meet me, he knew it was going to be a human being. He knew human sacrifice was against God's law. Did he really mean that I will offer it up for a burnt offering? Did he mean a human sacrifice when he knew it was against God's law? Well, when you look at other parts of the Bible, the Hebrews knew that this also meant, in a spiritual sense, a living sacrifice, and not necessarily, placing a human being on top of an altar and slaying them as a sacrifice to God. It meant, in a spiritual sense, a human sacrifice. And we find this in other places in the Bible, like Romans, the 12th chapter, verse 1. The Apostle Paul says that we human beings should present our bodies a living sacrifice, holy, acceptable unto God, which is your reasonable service. Servicing other people is, of course, a living sacrifice. We also see this in Ephesians, the 5th chapter, verse 2. Here we see Paul saying, and walk in love as Christ also has loved us. So do what Christ did. And notice what it says about Christ. It says, and he hath given himself for us an offering and a sacrifice to God for a sweet smelling savor. So the life of Jesus Christ, not just the death of Jesus Christ, but the life of Jesus Christ was a sacrifice. He serviced people. He was a living sacrifice. And in Isaiah, the 53rd chapter, verse 10, it plainly says that the servant of Yahweh, which is Jesus Christ, made his soul or his life an offering for sin. His whole life was a sacrifice, not just the death of Christ on the cross, but as he lived his life, he serviced others. He was a living sacrifice. So when it says here that he will offer up his daughter to the Lord, and I will offer it up as a burnt offering, it meant in a spiritual sense. And nowhere in the text does it say that Jephthah put his daughter up on an altar and, of course, slayed her, and it was a human sacrifice to God. Nowhere in the text does it say that. It was a living sacrifice. Now, what was that living sacrifice? Well, notice verse 37. It says here, she said to her father, let this thing be done for me. Let me alone 2 months, that I may go up and down upon the mountains and bewail my virginity, I and my fellows. This was her living sacrifice. She had to stay a perpetual virgin And that was a huge sacrifice in the days of Israel during that time, because she could not, continue her dad's line, her dad's family. So it was a living sacrifice. She had to serve God and be a perpetual virgin. And it goes on to say here in verse 38, go, and he sent her away for 2 months. She went with her companions and bewailed her virginity upon the mountains. And then in verse 39, it says, it came to pass at the end of 2 months that she returned unto her father, who did with her according to his vow, which he had vowed, made her a burnt offering, in a spiritual sense, a perpetual virgin, a living sacrifice. And notice, and she knew no man. For the rest of her life, she knew no man. And it was a sacrifice because, and they lamented because during that time, it was a huge deal because she couldn't continue her dad's lineage, her dad's family. And as plainly says here in verse 34, she was his only child. Besides her, he had neither son nor daughter. And that's why they were lamenting, because they couldn't continue the line of Jephthah. So nowhere in the Bible does it say that she was sacrificed on an altar. Nowhere does it say here that God allows human sacrifice. Instead, the Bible plainly says that God is against human sacrifice, that this meant in a spiritual sense, she was performing a living sacrifice of being a perpetual virgin. And was Jephthah a hero of faith? Absolutely. He fulfilled his vows to God. He kept God's law, and he was a champion of faith, as it plainly says in Hebrews, the 11th chapter, verses 32 through 34. So to say here that God allows human sacrifice, or that the Bible contradicts in any way, is just another Bible misconception.